Pizza time.
Pizza time.
You're listening to America's quietest podcast, The Pod People. I'm Matisse Van Rossum, and I've been down since day one, bitch. This is Bed Sheets' ASMR hour, and we're about to talk about The Quiet Place Day One.
No, don't make those. Don't fucking do that to our audience. They don't deserve
Cleveland.
that.
Shh. You have to be quiet.
Hi.
Be so loud.
Okay. I'm not. Don't. It gives me the tingles, but not the good kind. Shit makes my butthole tingle. I don't like it.
Yikes.
Like it pucker up in fear, you know, like not in a good way.
I didn't want to know that.
It makes me clench, and I don't want to be here. Anyway, hi. Let me introduce myself now that I've said that.
Now that you've talked about your butthole in the first 2 minutes of the podcast.
I introduced my butthole before I introduced myself. It's a new one. I don't think I've done that before on the podcast. Hi, I'm Cleveland Mosier, and you can get me by the slice.
Oh, yeah. Well, what if we just did do a whole episode where we just whispered the whole time? I think that would suck. I think that would probably be bad to listen
material,
to. Yeah.
Very avant-garde.
Yeah, avant-garde podcasting. We're exploring the medium of podcasting.
I think that's a rabbit hole that exists. Right?
I mean, there are ASMR podcasts
about like weird, about movies even.
Sure,
I bet.
I'm sure there's at least one of them out there.
Yeah. Easy, tons. I'm sure.
I don't understand the appeal of ASMR. It always makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. It clicks to me. Let's just get this out of the way. I think we've talked about this before, but it's
that
intimate.
Why your butthole pucker?
The reason I don't like it is that it's intimate, but I understand why some people like it because it's intimate, right? Like,
I don't get how people use it to fall asleep and stuff like that. Maybe
it feels too sexual to me.
That's my thing. Is it always I've heard so many people insist that it's not a sexual thing, but I think they're lying. I think it is.
I think they're lying to themselves.
And I think we're alienating any of our listeners who enjoy ASMR.
I mean, there's a reason Cleveland's butthole puckered, okay?
That's true. Let's get into that.
Look, that's not a...
let's break that down.
My butthole is not a weather balloon, okay?
What color is it?
It's not, I haven't checked recently. I hope the normal
color of the butthole, whatever that may be.
Whatever that is,
decide for yourself. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
It's clean. That's all that matters.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
We've driven this disgusting bit deep into the ground.
Deep into the butthole of the earth.
Deep into the butthole of the earth. Hello, listeners. Let's start over. Hello. Welcome.
We're supposed to be talking about The Quiet Place Day One.
We just. I
don't know why I said it like a new. I said talking about.
Talking about The Quiet Place.
Now, what if we did the whole podcast like that? What if we talked about a New York accent?
I'm talking about A Quiet Place Day One over here.
I'm quiet over here.
Get a hot slice.
Let's get a slice.
Let's go get a slice. I'm being quiet over here. Staten Island guys are the first to die in A Quiet Place.
I hope not.
New Jersey.
Oh,
yeah, for sure. It's just wiped off the map.
Yeah.
Well, yes. A Quiet Place, Day One. We just got back from the theater and we saw it. This is the third entry in the Quiet Place series, but a prequel to the last two, the first two. We've done episodes on all of these, so if you like, go back and listen to those. I would say
this hardly constitutes as a prequel. It has a character from the previous movie. It's
a
spin-off. And better for it, frankly.
The first two movies are showing us the world a couple of years after the alien apocalypse. This is showing us, as the title implies, day one of the alien
Which
apocalypse.
we saw in a small town, but now we see it in a city.
In part two, they do sort of like an opening, seeing a little bit what happened with CIA office Jim and Emily Blunt when the aliens attacked, whatever. Now we're seeing what happened in New York City, the Big Apple. The aliens came to take a bite out of the Big Apple.
Sure did.
Folks.
It's just-
Well, this movie was written and directed by Michael Sarnowski.
Yes, who did, this is his second film. His first film was Pig, which came out a few years ago.
I think you're the only one of us who's seen that one.
Starring Nicolas Cage.
I've heard it's amazing,
fantastic movie. It was my favorite movie of that year. And I would say there's a lot of interesting similarities between the two. In this movie, one of the characters does like a close-up magic trick, like sleight of hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the perfect kind of summation of Sarnowski's style. Is it's
Close-up magic?
Hand. It's sleight of hand. You know, like I think both Pig and The Quiet Place like take structures and forms and premises and kind of misdirect you. Like, I think, for example, with Pig, the whole, introductory premise is Nicolas Cage's truffle pig gets stolen, and he goes on a path of vengeance to take revenge and find it. But really, it's not that. It's not a revenge movie. It plays with structural elements of that, but kind of deconstructs it. And it's really kind of a human story. And I think this movie is somewhat similar in that, like, it takes kind of the Quiet Place apocalyptic day of kind of premise and makes it a real sort of human story.
It's not about an alien invasion as much as it is about coming to terms with dying and death.
It's the setting. It's not the subject.
Yeah.
Yeah, well...
Which is not what I was expecting from this movie. I haven't seen...
The trailers misdirect really well.
I haven't seen Pig, but I did really like the last two Quiet Place movies, but I think we were all pretty worn out by having to see the trailer for this movie in front of every movie we've seen for like the last 6 months.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because for a movie called The Quiet Place Day One, the trailer that they were constantly showing for this movie was like the least quiet thing imaginable. Like it was just all loud action
place.
all over the place. And there's certainly great set pieces in this movie, but it's not about that really, which, is somewhat similar to the first two. But I think even more so than the first two, like the lore of the aliens is way more unimportant in this movie.
God, I was so grateful.
The aliens in general are way more unimportant in this one.
One of the worst things that a spinoff can do is force us to relearn the mechanics of the creature, the lore, whatever, through the eyes of our main character. And we are graciously saved that by, one, largely those events taking place very quickly and organically, and two, our character really doesn't care about those things either.
Yeah.
In the way that we as the audience also would not. Like, they care enough. Like, it's important to them for it being the setting. But...
well, I think it's interesting because our central character, our protagonist, is played by Lupita Nyong'o. I think her character's name is Samira. I don't know if they ever actually say her name in the movie.
I don't think so. I had to wait until the credits.
I had to pee, so
but it starts that she is terminally ill. Cancer, assumedly, or something. She's living in a hospice outside of the city. The nurse at the hospice, played by Alex Wolff, takes the patients into Manhattan to go see a marionette show, and then the aliens show up, the meteors fall from the sky, everything descends into chaos. But this is just setting up to go off of Cleveland's point, is what I think is really interesting about this, and from the perspective of this character, is that the world is ending, but it's kind of unimportant to her because her world is already ending.
Yeah.
She's already dying. Like, she's on death's doorstep, so the world collapsing around her is kind of unimportant. Really, like, her driving motivation for the entire movie is to get to her favorite pizza place in Harlem and see if she can get a slice that has been left over.
I love this so much.
It's like literally the whole movie. Yeah,
to get a slice of
pizza,
and it's perfect. It's like to
something
take
that
this
I really
apocalyptic event and just make like something so beautifully simple and mundane out of it.
Yeah,
and it's because it's not important. Like it's just a slice of pizza, but it's so important to her.
Exactly.
And I love it too, like we slowly get to find out why over the course of the film, and it's great. I do have to say though, I don't think she's the main character of this movie. The cat is.
The cat
is the main character. I think we can all agree that the cat is awesome.
I would die for that cat.
Shout out to the star performance of this movie. Schnitzel the cat.
Good name.
Playing Frodo.
Also a good name.
Samira's cat. Yeah, I think it's kind of apropos because the movie's, it's
a journey.
It's a quest.
Journey to Mordor,
the quest to Mordor, except instead of destroying the ring, trying to get a piece of pizza.
But like the whole pizza MacGuffin is so perfect. It reminds me a lot of Pig because again, it's that misdirection. Like what is the central quest? It's something ultimately very unimportant and mundane, and it's really the character cares about that.
It's of all-consuming importance to the character.
Yeah, but it's not about that necessarily. It almost reminded me of... tonally, these films are different, but it reminded me of Twinkies in Zombieland. Something where it's a very mundane thing, but to the character, it
means
is,
something.
Like,
it's been made
super
scarce
important.
and special, yeah. No, absolutely. I'm definitely with that. And then, after Lupita, she goes to the marionette show, and at that point we're introduced to Joseph Quinn's character, Eric, as he emerges from the suitcase and inflates a balloon and flies around for a little bit.
Oh.
You see what I did there? It's kind of like a skinny little puppet. So I made it out like that's where he comes into the film. No, sorry.
Dipshit misdirection.
Stupid joke. No, she sees the marionette show. I really like that sequence. It's like much of the rest of the movie.
I found it surprisingly moving.
Yeah.
For like a very, very early into this movie, and it's literally just like a scene of like an old dude like puppeting like a marionette on stage. But like, it's treated like with a certain kind of like sentimentality without being like sickly sweet, that I found it's really.
I felt like that was such a directorial touch to it, because like Pig was like a $3 million movie, and this is like a $70 million movie.
He's such a weird pull for this fucking movie. But
I was honestly a bit concerned about it, but he did a great job, like getting the small moments.
It works.
Because how often do they take like a really great budding indie director and give them a huge franchise movie and ruin them,
right, exactly.
So I agree. Like I would also see that as a concern, and here we got lucky. I think.
I mean, well, I think it's ultimately like the saving grace of the film is like how good of a director and screenwriter he is, because like I'll be honest, as much as I've enjoyed the last two Quiet Place movies, my biggest trepidation going into this, and it holds even after seeing it, is what is left to wring out of this premise. And I don't think this movie wrings anything new out of the framework of aliens that can hear good but cannot see. I really don't think it does anything new.
And I would even go further and say, like, in a weird way, I feel like a lot of the big set pieces were the worst parts of the movie to me, in that there's only so many
the most boring
times, many times something loud can happen and then characters can run away in panic. It just becomes the same after a while. But the human element is what really carries this.
It's weird. It's kind of an inverse to the last couple of movies, where like the first two movies definitely like do focus the human element, and I think they do it largely successfully. Like Emily Blunt and her relationship with her children and all of that stuff. Like it's compelling and it's good, but like I do feel like in those movies, like, the human element is still kind of secondary to the cool monster set pieces, and at that point they haven't really worn out their welcome. But yeah, this movie is absolutely the inverse of that, where I was totally more interested in the human aspect of the story than I was the big scary monsters. Because again, they really don't bring anything new to the table in terms of these creatures. And I think if Sarnofsky was a less skilled filmmaker, I would feel way more like burned out by this movie. I think.
Yeah, I think part of it too is when you're working on such a large financial scale on a project like this.
Yeah.
I think it's also equally important to have a lot of people around you, executives, producers, executive producers, and the like, who can help kind of protect you and shield you from, like, the rest of...
Executive producers like Michael Bay.
Right.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
He's executive produced all of these movies.
Yeah.
I literally forget about it every single time until the credits roll. And it says executive producer Michael Bay. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then, like, one of the loudest filmmakers.
Yeah.
In just, like, every way. The loudest filmmaker.
Yeah. You know, in this case as well, I saw that, is it Krasinski, is that his name, the CIA?
John Krasinski, yeah.
That he also, like, I think co-wrote and executive produced on this.
He of course has an executive producer credit, but he does have a story credit. Did he direct the second one? He didn't direct the first one, but I can't remember. It's been a few years. I think he did. I think he did direct the second one.
And I feel like
I think he's a fine director.
Yeah, and like, you know, like, also at that point you have enough influence and pull that you can, like, shield, like, these budding indies and let them come up. But that is where my defense of CIA Office Jim is going to stop. But, like, I think that is, like, largely why this movie happened.
He does have a story credit, though Sarnofsky does have the sole screenplay credit.
Oh, I like that.
But I would not be surprised if some of the more kind of generic, like, monster set pieces that we've seen, like, that stuff feels more like CIA Office Jim to me.
And we can get into that a little bit further.
Sure.
I mean, to me that was, again, the weakest part of the film, and I think the second act, where it's just a lot of those over and over again, kind of drag kind of the emotional core down a little bit.
Yeah, I think this movie starts and ends very strong.
Agreed.
And kinda, I agree with you, kind of drags in the middle.
Yeah, but I would credit Sarnofsky entirely for, like, you know, putting such a strong screenplay together from, you know, kind of the structural constraints that you're working with under a big project like this. But I would also say Lupita is the other heart of this film.
Oh yeah, she's great.
I think with a lesser actor, it would have been harder to sit through a lot of this.
Yeah, you know, she's very, very good.
Very expressive in such subtle ways. And it's amazing how much she communicates without saying a word in this film.
And frankly, too, like, jokes aside, impressive to not be as upstaged by such an incredible cat. You know, that's always the bit on talk shows, right? Is, like, your appearance can often be ruined if you're following like an animal act or something.
Yeah.
Like, it's it's sort of a known thing that, like, yeah, you can get upstaged by the puppy. And here, I think that not just her performance, but also her performance with the cat is incredible. And with the other people around her, like, it's very clear that she is, like, as her character, very sensitive to the animal and its needs. Like, just, like, walking it around on the leash and the rest, and, like, knowing how to calm it. It's a regular cat, and it remains almost unbelievably calm.
Well, it's not a regular cat.
Sequences.
It's supposed to be a support animal.
It's a service
right?
animal.
But it's still, like, is important here because, like, where Lupita and all of the other characters have very strong emotive elements, like, the cat is a very stable kind of presence in this movie. You know, we don't have emotional scenes surrounding the cat, you know, really.
I think we have a lot.
I don't know if that's entirely true. I do think the scene later when Joseph Quinn is in like the creature's nest, like trying to get the cat.
Yeah, I suppose.
And, yeah, like the editing is so, it does so much of the heavy work there. Like, no, there aren't like literal sequences apart from that one where he goes to rescue the cat, but the so much of the camera is focused on our little feline friend, and it makes it takes a lot of extra steps to make it clear where it is at all times. We're always very delicately aware of where the cat is.
Well, we're not. We are most of the time, and the few instances where we're not, extremely stressful.
Yes.
I found, which is to compliment, a credit to the film, is that there are a couple of times where, like, in moments of chaos, where the cat will like jump out of her arms and like run off somewhere, and so that's actually how we are initially introduced to our sort of secondary protagonist, who comes in, I think, a little later into the film than he should. I kind of wish they'd introduced him a little bit
His
earlier.
introduction was kind of strange.
I love it. He's just birthed into the movie.
I do kind of like that he just pops out of nowhere. Yeah, like there's this big thing where it's like,
it's pretty real. Like he just pops out of the because it's a flooded subway.
Yeah,
and there was this, there's this big event where there's a whole crowd of people that are trying to make their way to the boats, and the creature comes in and fucks over all. There's a big stampede of people. It's a mess. It's chaos, and as it begins to settle,
I thought that scene was pretty good. I'll
It's good,
say
yeah.
in terms of like big set pieces, I did enjoy that.
Mm-hmm. And as the camera like pulls over to like this flooded subway, our boy emerges from the water as birthed.
The cat leads us there, right?
Yes, the cat brings us
because
there, yeah.
during the chaos, the cat jumps out of Lupita Nyong'o's arms and runs off, and we follow her.
It runs through the stampede too. It's pretty...
and we follow her for a little while, and we're like, "What the fuck happened to the cat?" And then she gets into an alley, and she's safe. And we cut to the cat, and the cat's just kind of like run through streets doing its thing, and it goes over to the flooded subway entrance, like you said, and it stops to take a drink.
Yeah,
and so the camera's sitting there while it's drinking, and then Joseph Quinn pops out of the water. Literally, we have not seen this character before this moment.
Yeah, he's a stray.
This is like halfway into the movie, and he becomes like one of the, like, outside of Lupita Nyong'o, like the most important character in the film.
Right. So at that point, we're into the second act.
Yeah.
So did I cut you off? Or were you going to say?
No, I mean, that's just like, yeah, okay. So he's birthed. So we have Joseph Quinn now.
He's born into the movie.
Yes.
And I like it for that as well, because he
follows the cat back.
He's a tag along.
Yeah.
He's shell shocked. He hardly knows where he is. So he's just following motions at this point. And so he starts tagging her like a soaked puppy, and she first tries to get rid of him, turns him away, but he continues to follow, and like it's very sweet. And but I like that he appears like into the second act. It feels kind of unexpected and off-putting, not just to us as the viewer, but also to Lupita. And for that, I think it works. But also, that to me was the point where I stopped worrying about the safety of the cat, not because I didn't care about the cat, but because by that point, I think the film organically instilled in me a sense of, if the cat was going to die, it would have
by now.
And it let me sort of let go and just enjoy the movie, and not like concernedly wait to judge it for killing the cat, right? For taking the easy road. Like, I kind of stopped having to worry about that and just sort of accepted the journey of them with the cat. And
spoilers, folks, the cat makes it to the end. Don't worry, the cat survives.
And awesome for it. And
the cat makes it to the end.
Yeah, I was very grateful for that. Like,
I would have been furious if they killed the cat.
To me, that sequence is important, and I do want to stick on it for just a moment longer, because it highlights the core message of the film we'd spoken about before with the pizza, and that is in times of stress, the mundane is made magical, right?
Yeah.
And the cat in that scene is it's just a cat kind of exploring around. It's mundane, But just through that small series of events with this guy with shell shock, he sees this special sweet cat, and he follows it. It makes the cat feel magical. Very special thing. It's special to us, it's special to Lupita. And the happenstance of it, it all feels like something, again, out of the Odyssey. It feels like something mythic, not just fucking Hell's Kitchen. Or wherever they are at the time, as they're making their way to Harlem. And I like that too, because like at the beginning of the film, after the events have unfolded and she's huddled with some people, she says to her friend, "I'm gonna go get this pizza. I'm going to Harlem. I'm gonna get pizza." And it made me stop and kind of think, it's like, I never really thought that Harlem was like the borough known for pizza, because I've had a few friends who lived in New York, and they have different favorite.
I mean, I think there's so many pizza places in New York that, depending on who you ask, anyone could tell you any specific
character.
Well, here's what's cool about that is where I'm going is that like I've had a few friends like who all lived in different boroughs, and they all would tell me like, oh, we got to go here to get a slice. We got to go to this place. This is special. They have. This place has been doing it the longest. Really, this place has, but this place is better. Or here has the best because of this reason. And it's like all different boroughs, different places. And I always figured out that like for them it was special for some reason because their dad took them there because of whatever else. In this case, it's no different, and that felt very true and very human to me. That like she's going to this pizza place because it's special to her. It's special to her childhood.
Yeah.
And I love it too because like after they're kind of set out on their journey together, they go. It becomes nighttime and raining, and she goes to her old apartment, which I'm guessing was a handed down to her from her family or something else like that, because I could not imagine like affording hospice care and also an apartment in New York. But anyway,
whatever. It's a movie.
It's a movie.
Everybody in a movie has a nice apartment.
No, I say that for a joke and then leave it there. But there she tells him, but her reasoning isn't she went there as a kid in that scene. Her reasoning, she tells him, is because she wants to be the last person to get a slice at that place, and that the place is special. And she really highlights how important it is. And it isn't until a little bit later on that we find out it's because her dad took her there as a kid.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like, it's just, like,
that he used to play piano at a jazz club down the street, and that's where they would go afterwards. Yeah, and it's like, I think a less deft hand at storytelling would put all of that shit, like, right up front. Like, to continue that, and I guess to kind of spoil things a little bit, spoilers, whatever, but going off that same vein...
Watch the movie. It's good.
The sweater that she's wearing, this big, like, yellow cable knit, like, cardigan sweater that she's wearing, we find out at, like, the very end of the film that was, like, her dad's sweater. Like, again, spoilers a little bit, but at the end, like, she sacrifices herself so Joseph Quinn can get on the ferry because she knows she's going to die anyway, whatever. But before that scene, and it's a cool scene, we can talk about that later, but one of the things she does is she takes off her big yellow sweater that we've seen her wearing this whole time, and she gives it to him, she puts it on him, and in the moment, it's kind of like, okay, why? Interesting. Why? I was kind of thinking it's like
she's giving him the magic sword.
Well, I was kind of thinking that like, oh, she's also giving him the cat to take with him, so maybe the cat is more comfortable if he has the sweater that has her smell on it. Whatever.
True, which I like.
It's like that's what I was thinking. And then in just like the very last scene, it's like she's sitting there in the burned out ruins of the old pizza parlor, like looking at a photo of her and her dad, and he's wearing the sweater. And it's like, again, a less deft hand at the beginning would be like, Alex Wolff would be like, when they go, oh, I see you're wearing your dad's old sweater today.
Yeah.
They would establish that very, very early on at the beginning.
Well, with both that and the pizza, I think a less skilled writer or director would make it the greatest of all time, rather than the greatest of all time for that character specifically.
She never even says that it's the greatest. She never says it's like, oh, this is the best pizza in the city. It's just like,
but
that's the place I'm going.
It's important to her. Yes. And I think that's what ultimately matters above, like, it being the best or, like, important universally. Like, I think, it's so nice that it's kind of a mundane thing to everyone else.
Yeah.
Like, this pizza place doesn't matter to anyone besides her in this limited story that we have.
It's cool. It's like, so many stories, they get caught up in, like, the Campbellian, like, universal monomyth bullshit of, like, taking the ring to Mount Doom, to destroy it, like, of the quest, and forgetting, like, why the quest is important to the protagonist at all, and therefore to us. Like, I don't really give a shit about the ring, like, I care about Frodo. Like, I care about, and frankly, too, I care about Frodo caring about it because Frodo cares about the Shire, which, like, Tolkien takes forever to set up. Like, so much of the Fellowship is just... Because, like, I remember, like, I listened to it on cassette when I was a kid, and it was a huge box of cassettes just all lined up. And I remember just going through one cassette, flipping it, and then another one, and they're still talking about the Brandy Bucks and the Brandywine lineage and shit. And just being like, what is the point of all this? But even as a kid, I started to realize by the time that Gandalf does show up, he's trying to tell Frodo, like, yo, dude, if you don't do this, the Shire's gone. And even still, like, they do come back to the Shire and it was raped. Like, that is a whole thing. They kind of
there's the whole in the book.
Like,
there's the whole scouring of the Shire after they destroy the ring. It's like a whole big chunk of the book.
Yeah.
Like, after the main objective is complete, and I see why Jackson cut it out of the movies, because, like, it really would fuck with the
the structure. Like,
the flow.
We kind of see it in the vision.
Tolkien
like, but.
Yeah, we see it in a vision, like, I think it's like Galadriel's vision. What are we doing? Why are we getting into Lord of the Rings?
It's important because, like, this movie, I stand by it, because, like, this movie is...
too easy for us to nerd out on
about
that shit.
the monomyths, but, like, the point is, but they do the same thing here. And this is what's cool about it, is, like, the cat's named Frodo, like, clearly the people making this movie were thinking the same thing. So I think this is a worthy aside, but to jump a little bit towards the end, this happens. They get to the pizza place... They get to the Shire, and it's been burned.
Yeah.
Like, Mount Doom isn't the end of the story, right? It is again in the movies. But, like you're saying, that's important. Like, the hero goes, they kill the dragon, they do the thing, and they come home, and home is different. It has changed, and they have as well, right? Here, the pizza place has been destroyed. It's been firebombed, essentially, by the creatures.
Yeah,
and by whatever
it's
else has
burned.
happened.
Yeah.
And it's been scoured.
The scouring of Patsy's Pizza.
Of Patsy's Pizza. And... there's a lesson in that, and we still learn something, and it's still really beautiful because, like, you can still take those same steps to make home better. They rebuild the Shire. They do the same thing.
Yeah,
like,
they are
grab
able
a
to
piece of
oust
pizza
Saruman,
somewhere
yeah.
else, and he writes Patsy's on the pizza, and he gives it to her, and they still have, even though the pizza place is destroyed, they still get to have their special moment. And they're, I love that. It's the fucking human spirit, like, we endure.
Yeah.
And it's sweet, and it's made more beautiful than if the pizza place had been there. Like, I think that's fucking awesome. Like,
Yeah.
So yeah.
I like that connection. And what I think is brilliant here is they really don't take much of any time at the beginning setting that up deliberately.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this movie kind of jumps right into it. I would say very quickly. They establish the chaos very early in the film. And then kind of, let the characters kind of go
Exist
on
in
their quest.
it. Yeah.
Whereas, like, again, a lesser director would have had, like, a solid 15-20 minutes, like, dwelling on, like, how important the nostalgia of the pizza place was
Right.
to the character.
Yeah, chosen one bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, which frankly, again, lore is not good writing.
Well, and again,
Right?
it's like you have... I think they set up, like, good enough reason for you to buy Lupita Nyong'o's motivations for the pizza, even without the emotional tie-in that is developed throughout the film, because when Alex Wolff at the beginning is like, go change, like, I'm taking you all into the city for a show, he's like, when's the last time you went into the city? And she says something like, last time was the last time. And he's like, well, here you have a chance for another time. Because, again, like, she's terminally ill, so she's dying, so she thought she'd already gotten her last time to go into the city, and so when he gives her this opportunity, she's like, okay, I'll go, but we gotta stop for pizza on the way back, that like we have to stop and get pizza before we come back to the hospice. And so you're thinking, okay, she's like, she thinks that this is going to be her last time going to the city, so it's her last time to get a classic New York slice.
Her quest had already started.
That is exactly before the apocalypse even happens, and that is motivation enough.
Yes.
That's motivation enough without the sentimental aspect that it's the specific pizza place that she used to go with her dad after he would play at the jazz club. And it's like that it just enriches something that is like already, like I said, motivation enough. It's already done. So it just makes it sing.
So true.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we're touching on the beginning again, because another point I wanted to bring up is another kind of Campbellian thing that this movie does, is it has the, her nurse sort of acts as her guide at the beginning of the movie. He's literally taking her to the place, you know, like she is much like her cat to her, tethered to him. He's the one who is leading them there. She's sort of bound to this guy. And, after they see the show, they come out. He's on the phone. He comes out, and he hangs up, and he comes over, and he's like, "Look, we have to go back." And you know, as the audience, it's pretty clear to us that like the rumblings are beginning. The creatures are coming. It's gonna the meteor shower is about to happen, but she's not aware of this yet. She doesn't have that iron, and she says to him, "Yo, we're getting pizza. This has to happen." And he's like, "Nope, we can't. I got to take y'all back," which he's in the right to say. And I forget exactly how the squabble goes, but it ends by him saying, look, I'm your friend. I'm trying to help you, whatever. She cuts him off. She says, "You're not my friend. You're my nurse." And there's this great tension that's suddenly been brought up between them and friction.
Yeah.
And it's good drama. It's good drama.
It's good drama.
You know, then the events ensue. All this other stuff happens.
I was kind of disappointed that Alex Wolff died so early.
He's great, but he has to, because it's the death of the mentor, right? Like, and his death is really good and meaningful.
Yeah.
Like, and because they're reunited in the puppet theater again with all these other huddled masses. They introduce like basically the only new mechanic to the creatures. It's not really a mechanic to the creatures, but to the world, where they're flying helicopters across the island, just to, you know, announcing to people like, "Hey, stay quiet," basically giving us the lore that we already had, which was nice. And saying like, "There's going to be boats down here, whatever." But whenever the helicopters fly by, the monsters all follow in a big stampede.
I liked that.
Me too, and that was a cool addition.
I thought that was cool.
And you get the impression too that after they've all left in their stampede, they have a moment because the creatures are busy elsewhere.
Yeah,
so they have a moment to talk and do the rest. They figure this out. They're up on the rooftop. It's a nice moment there, and some other things happen. But
I wouldn't say the moment on the rooftop is really a nice moment.
Some other things happen. I'm trying to
because the military bombs all of the bridges getting into Manhattan, so they're sealing off Manhattan.
Right. And then the dad has to kill that panicking guy too.
The guy is screaming.
But anyway, to finish the bit, later the power is shut off. And lo and behold, a generator kicks on. It's super loud. Any zombie game player, person, is gonna be triggered by that. But his last act is to run over to the generator, and he has to. The shut-off valve is behind it, so he has to get up and
the gas valve
and shut it off so it doesn't draw the creatures, killing everybody that's there. And again, it's all done without dialogue, without saying a fucking word, and he does it, and I think
his shirt gets caught on the generator,
and that makes that one
tears.
last sound.
Yeah,
and a creature kills him.
And
I love that he dies. Like getting that sacrifice in. They have that moment of bonding right beforehand, and then he's gone, and she's left on her own.
Selfless sacrifice that these movies love to do, but ultimately
it gets it out of the way early.
It's very
although
formulaic,
Lupita does one at the end,
as in like loud sound happens. They almost get away, and then one more, loud sound.
I will say one of my problems with this movie, and I don't think that this is a Sarnowski thing. I really don't. But this movie,
so baked into them.
This movie has. The previous two did not do them as much as this. This one has an abundance of cheap jump scares, the worst kind of jump scares. And that where Alex Wolff dies is one of those.
For a split second, you think everything's fine, and then
Yeah. Well, because it would be more effective if they just kept it in the wide and just a creature comes and carries him off and he's gone. Like, we do get that shot because we're seeing it from her perspective. But if you'd kept it as one long wide of her staying there looking at him, he looks at her, creature grabs him, boom. Like, that's the way to do it. But they have to cut where we look directly into the darkness and the creature jumps at the camera. Yeah. Like, that's where the cheap jump scare comes in. They do that more than once. They do the same thing later where she's when they go to her apartment and she like wakes up after sleeping on the couch and she looks out the worst one. Yeah, and she looks out the window and like New York is all normal and there's cars and people on the street and everything, and then a creature jumps through the window and she wakes up. God, that shit drives me insane.
Yeah.
And this movie had much more of that than it should have. And it's so frustrating
too, because I think when they had a chance to do successful scary scenes, I think they're incredibly successful.
Sure.
I think of like the first big scene we get where like it's super like foggy from all of the dust.
From the dust,
everything.
yeah.
And
very post 9/11.
Lupita is kind of wandering through it, and you get all these incredible shots where it's just details of the monsters. You never see a full figure. It's always a foot or whatever.
They do love to be doing that, and there's a part of me that's like, we're 3 movies in, we know what the monsters look like, stop obscuring them. But at the same time, also like,
I think it works for that scene
at
though.
Least.
Yeah. Well, and
they look good. In full light.
There's a very in the scene that we already mentioned where we first get Joseph Quinn's character. Right before that is right after one of these moments where the helicopters have flown through and they're like, make your way to like the South something harbor, blah blah blah, don't make any sound, all of this stuff. There's a stampede of creatures chasing them. Some cool overhead shots of the creatures like running all over the buildings and stuff and following the helicopters.
Oh, it looks good.
That stuff was cool. But what I like is like, after that, like that's when Lupita has found the kids. Which I thought was going to be a much bigger thing. When she found those kids, I was like, these kids are going to be attached to her for the rest of this movie. They're not. They are for like 5 minutes.
Just an opportunity for her to kind of show some self-sacrifice. She gives them that candy bar.
They come out and they start heading towards the harbor, and just like gradually all of these people start coming out, and before you know it, you've got like a street full of just a huge crowd of people, and Lupita is going against the flow because she's not trying to evacuate. She's got to go get her pizza. She's dying anyway, so escape is not important to her. So she's going against the flow, but as she's going, we're again all of these detail shots of like a wheelchair like being pushed over like some glass and like all of this stuff. And as she's starting to realize that even though everybody's being quiet, when you've got this whole mass of people,
it's accumulated sound.
It's accumulated ambient sound. There's no way for hundreds of people in the street to be silent. Man. Right, exactly. And we get that overhead shot of like all of the people filling the street, and there's just like, you just see like one creature, like a spider, like creeping down one of the buildings, and then it pounces and all hell breaks loose and just becomes total pandemonium. And I thought that of all like the big like monster set pieces, I thought that one and the one at the very end were the most effective, I think. I again, it's like, it's the attention to detail.
Because that early one is one that was featured prominently in the trailer.
Yeah, that's when like the meteor first like crashes into the street, and it's like it throws up the big plume of dust, so you can't see anything, and the creature's just like grabbing people out of the smoke and stuff. Which is, it's fine, but again, it's like we kind of already saw that in the last movie. You know, it's
But a
it's
lot
not,
of the elements of that crowd destruction scene were in there, like her,
Yeah.
getting trampled or hiding
Sure.
under the car. A lot of these elements were shown, and like the chaos of it all is executed, I think, better in the context of the film than the trailer.
Yeah, usually
Yeah.
it is. That's why I tend to avoid trailers when I can. But the one other element with the creatures that I did very much like in this movie, I think it's just a really, really good little piece of attention to detail. I can't remember which scene it's in, but I think the characters are looking out from a balcony or something, and it's daytime, and for a moment the city is quiet. But we just see up the sides of buildings these like padded blood marks, or these sort of spattered
claw marks.
Yeah, and it's like, and you can recognize it's not just like the creatures scrabbling up the walls. It's very specifically the creatures having like pounced on and just obliterated people, and then quickly climbed back up the buildings covered in blood. And so it's like the claw marks of them making their way back up the buildings. So it's like these like just these splashes of blood.
Yeah.
And dragged marks of blood, like going up like 40 feet up the sides of these buildings. And I think that takes like a certain amount of thought and clever attention to detail to kind of to put into your because like so many monster films just they have like all the claw damage and the fire and the everything else, but like I don't know, like those bits of blood going up the sides of buildings is just cool to me.
I will say I agree with you. I don't think that's unique to this film and this franchise. I think the last two have done the same kinds of things well within their own settings.
Oh yeah, sure.
I do like
Good movies.
in the first one, like the farmhouse is like covered in like all kinds of claw marks and stuff before you ever see the creatures.
Oh, yeah.
So like but I agree with you. Like it's good attention to detail. Man, I'll be honest to you with y'all, if you'll allow me to get a little bit cinema sensey. Ultimately unimportant, but their weakness being water thing still kind of bugs me. Like they introduced that in the last movie and we talked about it then, but I don't know. Okay, I'll give it one thing that like they're big and they're heavily armored, so I would believe that they sink. Like that makes sense. So if you're on a boat, they can't get to you because they just sink down to the bottom. But like, I think back to the first movie where
The underwater jump scare.
the basement in their house is flooding and Emily Blunt is down there and one of the creatures comes down and it comes down the stairs and it slides under the water like a fucking crocodile.
And it swims.
And it's like, you can argue that, okay, like the water is shallow, so it's really just walking around under the water.
But it's like in its element.
But it feels, the way that it slides into the water in that movie, it feels like it is something that swims.
And see,
one of them drowns in this one, like, very easily.
Yeah, I mean, the bigger problem for me about it in the context of this film is they announce it over the helicopter speakers.
The attackers cannot swim. Get onto the water if you can.
24 hours, they just know this as fact.
I mean, they I guess like the broader military that hasn't.
I mean, they probably would have figured that out relatively quickly. But also at the same time, it's like they blow up all the bridges to like seal off Manhattan. But we also see early on, like, that one character who's, like, listening to the radio, and she's got the globe, and it's marked with all the places they've landed. And it's like, this is a global invasion. Like, it's all over the world.
Well, I get like...
So it's like, what is, like...
If you want to try and, like, kind of Star Trek overread into it, that, like...
Again, this is
most
cinema
of the meteors
but...
land... Yeah, this is our little cinema sense moment. We're giving ourselves a little...
Yeah,
fine. But, like, that... I don't know, it's an invasion. Most of the so many more meteors landed in the highly populated area of New York,
maybe.
so they cut it off so that they couldn't spread as easily.
even though they're already all over the rest of the world.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things like, what does sealing off Manhattan really accomplish
there's more
here?
creatures there, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
yeah, that just
largely
kinda,
unimportant.
That does kind of drive me crazy in the scene where they're like in the flooded subway tunnel, and like one of the creatures hears them.
Well, this movie just has to work with what's been established in both the first and
Right,
second.
yeah,
And it's such a big plot point in the second movie.
And it's like they get swept into like the tunnel where it goes like fully underwater, and the creature like drowns pretty much immediately. It does a thing where it like grabs its throat and goes and everything.
Here's why I have less of a problem with that, because I think the right answer is I think it's dumb. It is my biggest flaw with the second movie.
Again, I have no problem with them. I have no problem with them sinking and not being able to swim.
It's not consistent.
But it shouldn't drown. The one in the first one is crawling around in the water.
I think that's the problem. I think the one in the water is the problem because their entire head is an ear. and let's be real. Like if you get water in your ears, it's not comfortable.
It's true.
And if your entire head is an ear, I can imagine that like the water would just rush in and it'd fuck up your whole
bad,
biology
yeah.
and you drown quickly. I buy it. I buy they're heavy and their head is an ear. So sure. Yeah, like the water just fucks it up. And
the problem is that the scene of it swimming around in the basement in the first one is like one of the coolest scenes in the movie.
Like, aesthetically, it's neat.
So it's like just like from a set piece perspective, it's one of the coolest things in the movie. It's like I understand that sometimes at many times series franchises retcon their own lore or whatever.
And this is hardly
they're doing it here for sure, but like. It would be one thing if it was just like a throwaway thing in the first movie, but it's like a cool set piece in the first movie that they're just like, nah, actually these things hate water, it turns out. I mean, it makes sense that they would, again, like you said, their head's a big ear, they're heavily armored, so they would sink, and you know, like, when it rains, they're basically useless because too loud. It's like, it started raining in this movie, and I had to... My gut instinct was to be like, haha, checkmate, liberals. I don't know why.
Water. Yeah, I really like it. I like that. Yeah, the invasion isn't like all that perfect. I think it is kind of funny though. Like, I don't. What is it with alien invasion movies and water? Because we've got Signs. Signs does that, doesn't it?
Yeah, the aliens are allergic to water. Signs,
they do it in Signs.
They can't open doors.
What was
either.
that B movie that came out like 15 years ago?
Battle for L.A.
Battle for L.A. does it. They're weak to water in that too. Like, yeah, in this movie they're weak to water.
What the fuck is Battle for L.A.? I've never
It was
heard
a
sucked. It was bad.
Is that a sci-fi original?
No, it was in theaters. I saw it in theaters.
Big budget. It was basically like the premise of it was they came from outer space, shitty B movie with a huge Michael Bay budget. Like, and it had, you know, all the big
Aaron Eckhart is the star.
Aaron Eckhart is the star. It's all from the perspective of military dudes.
Squad of Marines.
So it's a big like US Army like fucking, you know, hoorah movie too, so like that's their core demographic.
So you know, in the first Michael Bay Transformers movie, where all the military guys are in the desert and they're doing their shit until they get attacked by the big scorpion, Scorponok.
Yeah, I know his name.
Yeah, so imagine an entire movie that's that but worse. I don't know why we're talking about. I did see it in theaters. It was bad.
I don't know if I saw it. I can't even remember.
I know I did go see that in theaters.
Yeah, I think it passed by.
Water, yeah, you're missing nothing. Water was an important aspect of it, but I truly can't remember if the aliens they were allergic to water or they needed water. I think they might have been invading because they wanted our water. I think that might have been
other planets like in our solar system that like they could have
way more water and don't have like people on them or whatever. But we don't need to. We don't need to try to logic a bad movie that nobody remembers from 15 years ago.
The Battle LA aside does feel less necessary than the Lord of the Rings one, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. We've already spent too much time talking about it. Nobody knows. Okay. I guarantee nobody who's listening to this knows the movie that we're talking about.
All I have left really to talk about is it's a very simple topic, and that's I like Eric.
I was going to ask how
I
y'all
like
felt
Eric.
about Joseph Quinn in this.
He is just naturally compelling.
I think he's
he
good.
is sweet. He is charming. He's just this like kind of this dude that shows up.
I thought-
I liked him a lot.
He's a great foil to Lupita in this movie.
Yeah, he's
I
very
thought-
soft and sweet.
I thought I was fully sick of him after Stranger Things, but
I didn't even realize that was him.
from you didn't watch the most recent season, did you? But did you see?
I watched the first half because they split it.
He's
and I just didn't bother with the
he's the
second.
heavy metal D&D guy that everybody loved so much from the last season, that everyone was going as Halloween dressed as.
Yeah, I'll look
I
at it later.
skipped over after I checked out of Stranger Things after season.
Yeah,
2,
you're
but-
missing.
Oh, the one they were
nothing.
hunting after because of the
Yeah,
satanic panic guy.
the heavy metal
That is him,
D&D
isn't it?
guy.
But,
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
I
that's
didn't
him. And
realize.
I thought I was, like I said, I thought I was fully sick of him after Stranger Things. I thought he was very good in this.
Oh,
again,
well, get ready. You're going to see him again in 2025 in the Fantastic Four.
no, I will not. No, I won't.
As.
The right answer.
I will not be seeing him in that.
But back to this
You don't
movie.
wanna see long
back
neck
to this
Pedro Pascal?
fucking movie.
Why do we
You
keep
long
doing
neck
this?
Pedro Pascal? Come on. Get
Why do we
excited.
keep
Get
doing this?
hyped for Fantastic Four.
Joseph Quinn is good in this.
He's great.
I wish he was introduced again. I wish he was introduced a little
Yes.
bit earlier
A
because
bit of a missed opportunity.
I think it is important to like establish Lupita and let her be the main character and like let us get invested in her.
sure,
first
but you
before
could
letting
you could
him
still
I think you could
introduce
But
do
him.
that.
I do still see your point.
and still
You could
have
still introduce him 15 minutes
them
earlier.
You just have them be separate and merge them
Because
as you go along.
Their chemistry together is so good.
It is.
It is. It's
It's
great.
so good, and how well Sarnowski is able to build that in half the movie because
so
he's
little
introduced so late with so little dialogue is really, really great.
Well, I think what's brilliant about his character is Eric, clearly has like anxiety issues.
Yeah.
Where Lupita, being in hospice and knowing she's on death's door is kind of just over it all. Like her opening poem is about how everything is shit.
Is shit, yeah.
And she's just kind of done with it. And where, Eric is terrified to the point where he feels like a stray puppy.
Yeah.
And having kind of that connection brings out kind of the humanity in Lupita's character while kind of giving Eric kind of some complexity.
Yeah.
And that juxtaposition is so elegantly done, but just so brilliant in this movie. And I think it's truly the heart of this movie.
Yeah.
In such a great way. And honestly, if I had any, primary critique of this movie is I just wanted a little more of that.
That's why I wish he was
just
introduced
wanted
earlier.
A little more of that.
Yeah.
Either introduce him earlier or, replace a few of the second act set pieces with more of that stuff.
Yeah.
This is rare that, I will want more quiet moments of,
Yeah.
exposition complexity. But I think with a movie like this, it demands it, and also its strength. So you really want to play into the strength of the story you're telling,
Yeah.
and the director's skill.
Well, and I think that their relationship is developed really perfectly, which again is impressive for doing that entire arc in just the second half of the film. And I think that introducing him earlier would allow us to spend some more time in that. But also one of the things that I have to say, and this is a low bar, but immensely to the film's credit, I am so happy that their relationship remained platonic and they did not try to shoehorn it into a romance.
Fault in Our Stars, yeah.
Again, a lesser film would have done this. You know, it still could have ended the same with her sacrificing herself to save him. But after they had their kiss or their one night of lovemaking or whatever, you know, where, you know, he helps her feel love one more time before she dies, blah, 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 this kind of thing. Again, a lesser film would do this, but you can feel like a true, deep emotional connection between them, what I think that you could even call love, a type of love,
Sure.
but without it being a hokey, shoehorned romantic subplot.
I mean, that's not what either of their arc is about.
No, it's not.
ultimately. And
Nor
I think
nor
that's
would that
why,
happen in
yeah.
this scenario. Like, nor would, which is why I'm so, again, it's a low bar, but like I'm so happy they didn't do that. That scene where they're in the jazz club and he comes back with the other pizza that he found
It's so sweet.
and writes Patsy's on it and they eat it and he does the close up magic for her. It's like that scene is just beautiful.
It's really
beautiful.
special.
Honestly, my favorite
Favorite
part
scene of the
was,
film.
You know, they each take a slice, and then Frodo takes a slice.
The cat takes
gets
a
a piece of
slice.
pizza.
Yeah,
because
it's
it's
so
part of the, you know, it's part of the
sharing.
crew.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That
God,
cat was so fucking cute.
the cat is such
Do
an
you think
emotional through line.
So movies like this, like that have animal stars in them, often through necessity, have to have a number of animals play the animal.
They had two in this.
there were
They had
two.
Okay.
Schnitzel and Nico. From what I've seen some
Both great
some material on it, it seems that Schnitzel was the main one that we mostly
Nico is
see.
their shadow
I
or
think
stand-in.
I think
That's
Nico
kinda funny.
maybe the stunt double, maybe the cat stunt double.
I think they might have had a fake cat too.
Oh no, they definitely did.
And-
there's a shot when he goes
When
into
they
the
jump
water.
into the water, yeah.
Which
That
is
would
good.
have
Don't dunk a real cat. That's okay. They hide it well. That's
well,
fine.
when he jumps into the water, yes, but when he is in the water, like
That's a real
swimming
cat.
to the boat,
Yeah.
that is
Well,
a real living cat.
That's also because I'm
in the water with him.
90%. Like, well, yeah, I'm pretty, like they have him. Like, the cat is in the water with him, and that is cool and impressive. But like, he's in like a small pool, and they're green screening the boat in the background.
Sure, but
you know.
the impressive part is that he
They got
has
that cat wet.
a real live cat in the water that he is holding.
It's just
Yeah.
a wet pussy. Calm
It's-
down. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Cats don't like water, Cleveland. I don't know if you know this.
It's true.
They don't like to get wet.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
They don't like to get wet.
It's well known.
I will say though, just like while we're talking about the cat again, this is one of the more impressive like animal performances that I've seen in a long time. Like, exceptionally well trained cat. I'm sure there were times for the more intense sequences where it was probably lightly tranquilized. I feel like that's probably standard, but like a lot
often
of
am myself,
a lot of
so.
the time, like the cat is like obviously alert and very calm. Just like a very professional cat.
Well, that's the thing. I'll double down on this. You know, you mentioned the kind of alien nest moment in the movie, and that's true. But I think overall, like, the cat is a point of stability for these characters in the movie.
Oh, by design.
100%.
Where, like,
yeah.
I think it's a comforting sight to be seen in this movie because, like, otherwise our two mains, you know, have such harrowing emotional experiences that
Yeah.
having the cat in the mix is such a piece of comfort and stability that kind of,
Yeah.
you know, it's a support animal,
Yeah.
and it literally works in the film as a support animal.
Yeah.
You know,
And-
it grounds
tension.
us.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I do think like the alien nest part, like the cat for that entire scene appears largely unconcerned. Which
it's
is
an emotional thing for Eric,
right, but yeah, it's a very like, I mean, he's literally like going into the belly of the beast in this situation
To secure the feline.
to secure Lupita's cat.
Which we need, because, like, at the end of the movie, she gives the cat to him, so we need a sequence showing that he is willing to do this for her
Well, the cat saved him, kind of, right? The
Yeah.
cat, like, he followed the cat to her. The
Spiritually,
cat,
100%.
yeah, exactly. Like, the cat is important. And so it's like, and you buy that in that scene where he's, like, climbing up on this big iron girder to try to get the cat, to try to get the cat out of the tree while he's, like, literally in the alien's nest, and they're wandering around. And I will say, like, I love him, like, going after the cat. I love the tension. I love the sense of danger in that. I'm gonna get a little Cinema Cincy again. And this isn't really...
Here he goes.
This isn't really a sin or a complaint. It's just something that I kind of wish more of. It's like, when we're 3 movies in at this point, and we're still not really getting, like, anything new about the creatures, and it's like, I was very excited at the beginning of the scene. It's like, okay, finally, this is what we need to see. We need to see how they nest, right? We need to see what they're doing when they're not running around killing people. And it's like, we get that, and it's like...
weird white eggs.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like, it tantalizes, but it did kind of, like, leave me a little disappointed, because, like, they've got, like, yeah, there's these weird, like, sort of rocky, like, growths or eggs or something. It's like, oh, that's the alien eggs. Like, that's what they're you know, they're reproducing or whatever. But then one of them, like, tears one open, and some come over and they just, like, eat it. It's like, so are they an agricultural society?
No, it's like a crash site from their meteor, and their meteor has some of their
has their food on it.
They came prepared.
See, I like to think that they're growing them, that they're the aliens, that the aliens are an agricultural society, and those are like their pumpkins or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they brought some pumpkins as a snack and some seeds falling on the ground.
Again, it's like it teased it, but I wish there was a little bit more, because again, we're 3 movies in. I want to see something new in relation to these monsters. I want to see... I want to see
Quiet Place Day 1000.
I want to see a variant. I want, like, if we're talking, like, zombies and the like I want to see a variant. I want to see, like, a tank version of these creatures, like the really big one.
I don't know if I
see.
I do. I mean, going into this movie, I didn't even know if I wanted to see another Quiet Place movie.
Well, I'm saying this. I'm saying this in the context of if they're gonna keep doing this.
Yeah.
If they're gonna keep doing, like, this movie.
That's already a hard sell for me,
this movie gets a pass because of the strength of the human story. If that was not as well developed and compelling as it is, the rest of this movie would get much less of a pass for me, because...
Much like Godzilla Minus One.
I reject that premise, though, because I think you're totally right in that, like, it's very tired at this point, but I think telling the human story and this just being a backdrop is, like, the only way to do it after 2 or 3 movies.
But the thing is this movie doesn't need to be a Quiet Place movie.
Agreed.
In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if the way Sarnowski got attached to this is if he had a rough screenplay written for this story set during an alien invasion or something.
This could have been during the Cloverfield event.
And the studio was like, "Hey, this is a great idea. We can take this and we can turn this into a Quiet Place."
Yeah, you're totally
movie.
right.
This could have been a
in that,
Cloverfield.
like, it could have been a Cloverfield.
I'm pretty sure we talked about this in our original Quiet Place episode. I might be misremembering this, but I think that Quiet Place was originally supposed to be a Cloverfield spinoff.
It wouldn't surprise
And they
me.
turned it into its own thing. I would have to go back and listen to that episode, but I think we might have talked about that. And it's like, this movie, like, that's the thing, is like, the core story does not have to be a Quiet Place movie. You can just say alien invasion TM. Whatever that means. It could be a fucking Mars Attacks style scenario, right? And the core human story remains intact. This does not have to be a Quiet Place movie. It is by chance, I think, by happenstance. So what I'm saying is, if they're going to continue to try to carry forth this Quiet Place franchise or whatever, it's got to get to the point where I need to, like, I don't know, let's see some let's dumb it down and let's get some hoorah military bullshit. I want to see them fighting the monsters. I want to see what
exists.
I want to see.
We were talking about it earlier, Chase. It's Battlefield LA.
Incorrect. What I'm actually asking for is Edge of Tomorrow in a Quiet Place universe. I think that would be kick-ass.
Yeah. I don't know. I think
Edge of Tomorrow whips ass.
Edge of Tomorrow is great. Tom Cruise especially is great.
And Emily Blunt.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Emily Blunt.
Yeah. Well, I know for a while Mike Nichols, director of Take Shelter, and most recently The Bike Riders, was attached to direct The Quiet Place 3. And there were some scheduling conflicts, which I think is why we got a prequel before a third movie.
Sure.
I don't know if he's still attached to direct, but I think it would be interesting in that, like, I don't think that's the type of movie you would get from a Mike Nichols.
Yeah.
You would get a very kind of emotional story, kind of character-driven story, much like this in some extent, respects. But, like, I think that's okay.
Yeah, I don't know. This franchise needs something new. Like, I think this movie succeeds to the degree that it does, which is a high degree, because they happened to get Mike Sarnowski on board. Like, I think honestly, it feels to me more like a happy accident than anything else. I like Jeff Nichols. I like his movies. Like, that could be interesting, but I don't know, man. Like, this, coming out the other side of this movie, I liked it a lot, but it almost feels like it's good on accident.
See, that's the thing, like, I just want the character stories. Like, I think of something like 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah.
And, like, I think it worked because it's not directly a Cloverfield movie.
Well, that's...
It's a movie.
Well, frankly, like, it's almost worse because of it, frankly. Like, I think that... what we're really just asking for is, like, a good original film. Like, and there's really... The only reason the IP is tethered to any of these is because, like, the IP bears, like, a pre-existing audience and therefore money.
Right.
Like, and that's it. Like, so no, like, if the monsters don't matter, then I think for the like, are we talking about for the good of the dollar, or are we talking about for the good of the art? Because, like, if we're talking about the good of the art, yeah, no, like, if we just want the good human story, then why does it have to?
Because in the context of
if that's how you get funding for a movie, is set it in the same world as another successful film, then go for it. I don't think there's any problem with that.
I agree with you, but, like, if we're talking like the Cloverfield franchise, like, the quality of 10 Cloverfield Lane similarly feels kind of like an accident, because, like, we know straight up that script was not supposed to be, was not even supposed to have the aliens
stuff
in it.
Nothing like
it wasn't like
Cloverfield.
that stuff was added later to tie it into Cloverfield. And obviously this movie, when they began production, began as a Quiet Place film, sure. But I wouldn't be surprised if the script started out, or the screenplay started out,
it might as well have,
as not a Quiet Place, because it doesn't feel like it has to be a Quiet Place story. And I think it's great that we got this movie out of that, but I feel like that being the new formula for these films is unlikely. I think we're more likely to follow this up with maybe that's unfair. I was going to say a Cloverfield paradox. None of these movies have given me reason to think that we've got something that bad to look forward to, but I think that this movie is already on thin ice in terms of a Quiet Place premise. It doesn't bring anything, like, new or vital to the quote-unquote Quiet Place universe. It succeeds at being...
I think you're totally right in that, like, in a way, they kind of wrote themselves into a corner, right? Like, where do you go from here for a Quiet Place 3?
Well, if it want to play
like,
that
if
game.
you want to go back into, like, the kind of lore-heavy kind of more crowd pleasing.
Like, are we going back to Emily Blunt
style.
and her kids again?
Like,
are we going back to that? Like,
that feels like a step back to
I
me,
agree.
But at the same time, doing a very character focused thing that's different, like this movie, also feels like you're treading water if you're doing that
and
for the
that's
next
why I'm
one,
saying
too.
that's why I'm saying now we've done that. We've done the like very successful character driven version of this movie that just also happens to be A Quiet Place. So I'm saying next time
Make it loud.
Yes, exactly. Make it loud, make it schlocky. Let me see how the military tries to develop sonic-based weapons to fight these creatures.
It's just called
The Place. Yeah,
Okay,
place.
Here's my thought.
Let me see hoorah-ass Marines with dubstep guns like in Warhammer 40K.
Yeah, Lucio's coming out.
So, let me see.
You have to have like I hate this. But okay, so you've got a gun to my head, right? And you're like, okay, you have to make this next movie a sound gun. You have your dubstep.
I got a dubstep gun to your head.
You're gonna atomize my skull if I don't make this movie for you, right? Okay, well now that we're here, and morality is aside, has been set well aside. I say, yeah, you do A Quiet Place Day 1000. It's several years into the future, right? And this is awful, and I think this shouldn't happen. We call it
A Quiet Place, scary monsters and nice sprites, and it's scored by Skrillex.
Awesome, yeah. So many years too late. Love it.
20 years too late.
Let me tell you how you absolutely ruined the whole franchise, like in one go, like in one fell swoop, by introducing something new. You show intent with the aliens. Like, you say that they were the pre-invasion, and that they were set up to clear the grounds for the intelligent species.
Pacific Rim.
You do a Pacific Rim, or another way to think of it is the creatures in The Quiet Place, the Demigorgons. Here comes our Vecna, right? And I'm rolling my own eyes when I say that, but that's what you do, and it's awful because undermining.
I prefer the Pacific Rim.
Well, yeah, because it's a better movie, but a better piece of media. But it would ruin the whole thing because the why one isn't important in the movies, and making it important kind of ruins everything.
I do like that these creatures, they don't come in on spaceships, they come in on falling asteroids.
They don't really seem intelligent. They operate as a herd.
Which is why another reason them drowning in the water bothers me, because if they've been fucking flying through space, they don't need air to breathe.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is why anything? I don't know. That's scary. That's good. Like, they're alien.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Like, why is this happening? We can't bother to figure it out. All we can afford to focus on right now is survival. And that's great. And that's the whole premise of the films. So as soon as you start digging into the hierarchies, you ruin it. So don't. But they will.
I think don't go into the lore. I agree. That's how you ruin it. But, I agree with Tease in that, go from quiet and small scale to loud and dumb, and who better to do a loud and dumb movie than the executive producer of this film?
That's what I'm saying.
Get Michael Bay to direct the next
Give
Quiet
it to Mike.
Place.
Yeah, fuck it. Give the next Quiet Place to Michael Bay to direct. He's gonna have fucking, I don't know, fucking...
It's gonna be set in Miami.
Yeah, it'll be set in Miami, and I was gonna say Bruce Willis, but he has dementia, so that's not gonna happen. But somebody comes in and they build a dubstep bomb.
Hear me out. Bad Boys, Quiet Place crossover.
Okay, so get Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Yeah, a bad
Quiet
Place.
Boys. All right, are we done?
Yeah. No, I think we can get into Rain. We sort of we hinted at the ending. I did really love the ending. Lupita sacrifices herself. She gives Eric her sweater and the cat. The ferry is driving by, and she takes up a tire iron and starts smashing windows to set off the car alarms. Draw the creatures to her. He runs and leaps off the pier just before the creatures grab him. Again, somehow they dunked that cat in the water. It was great. I
was kind of expecting her to scream in that scene to get them to swarm her, but I'm glad that they didn't.
Me too.
I liked that they had the
Because
scene.
that final
good.
scene.
I liked the
is
scene where they
so
were in
good.
her apartment where it was raining, where they would scream during the thunder, where they were sort of like it was like cathartic. Yeah, I thought that was
that was
a
good.
nice
That was a good
moment.
touch. Yeah, it's worth mentioning.
One last thing I wanted to mention, because we haven't touched on it at all, and it's another point of misdirection, is that the trailers show Jimon Hansu, who obviously
much more
is
important part of the film.
well, yeah, because he's relatively heavily featured in the trailer
And the second film.
and he's in the second film, so it kind of set it up to think that like, oh, this is sort of a prequel about him, right? You know, this is how we'll see how he got there, but it's like really he's just in the beginning. Like he's in the puppet theater with her. He does have the moment where the guy is freaking out and he accidentally kills him trying to keep him quiet. I liked that scene.
That was a brilliant scene
But then-
because like it was brutal, but it was also like presented in a very tragic way.
Yeah.
Out of necessity.
Yeah, where it's like he's like forcefully trying to keep this dude quiet because he's trying to protect his and his family and all of these people's lives, but in so doing accidentally kills
I
the
mean,
guy.
it's hard
like,
to make a quote unquote good character kill an innocent person without looking villainous, and they do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, he seems like immediately regretful. It's like,
Yeah,
oh
even
shit,
in the
I did
moment,
not
like,
mean
he-
to do that.
Even while he's struggling to keep this guy quiet and not do the
Yeah.
necessary, he's looking over at his son and he's worried about his son seeing this.
Yeah,
then
and his
eventually
son
he
does
just-
see him
He
killed.
has to
yeah.
do. He kills him and he looks over and the son is gone. And we don't know if the son ran away before he saw it or after. And I
Yeah.
like that. I like that there's tension.
Yeah, that's right. It's ambiguous.
Yeah,
But yeah, then he's gone from the movie, and he shows up at the end on the
the
ferry.
boat.
He helps Eric aboard and takes care of him, and is like, yeah,
Was Eric in the second movie? Did I just miss
no,
that? Okay.
no, I don't think so.
Maybe he goes on his own pizza journey.
Yeah,
And maybe that's what we see that.
you know, and at the end he finds a note in the pocket of her sweater, take care of my cat, blah blah blah.
Love that.
We
Pretty
see
sweet.
her in the burned out pizza place, look at the photo of her dad, and the movie ends with her walking out into the street listening to
What we assume is her dad playing piano.
well, I mean, we directly hear that it's Feeling Good by Nina Simone at the end, because she pulls the headphones out and the boombox, or it's an iPod speaker, starts blaring and a creature lands on the ground behind
What's
her.
cool is throughout the film, whenever the creatures are landing, pouncing, and doing their thing around her, she's flinching, she's scared, and the rest. But here, when she unplugs the speaker to listen to this music in her final act, the creature slams down behind her, and we see in her face acceptance. And the creature
Yeah.
has been made metaphor.
This is her- yeah.
She is accepting her death, and the movie cuts to black without us having to see her death or anything else like that, which is very elegant. And roll credits. Good stuff.
Yeah, where she leaves her legacy in the Cardigan and Frodo. With
Yeah,
Eric.
leaving it with
And,
Eric,
like,
and she's come to terms with her death, which she's been struggling with her in the entire movie.
I think that's what's so brilliant about her moment with the picture of her family
Yeah.
at the pizza place is like she comes to that realization that like what's more important than like the life you live is the legacy you leave behind right
Yes.
there. And like
Taking those moments to take care.
and that's such a critical moment to her arc of like coming to terms with her own mortality.
Yeah, her priorities are right, man.
Yeah.
Like, for sure.
Yeah, she finds a sense of human connection in Eric that she can then leave something with her sweater and her cat and that stuff. It's like where she was just prior to this solely intent on her death drive. Now at least there's something of her and her family that carries on beyond her. Yeah, really nice, beautiful ending. Yes, let's rate it. One of y'all please start. I don't want to be first on this
Yeah,
one.
I've been torn between a 3 and a 4. I think I'm going to, for the time being, I think I'm okay with giving it a really strong 3.5. I think I tend to come in very hot in an excited way off of movies, especially ones I wasn't as excited about going in, but I was very pleasantly pleased. I don't think I gained so much from this film. Again, it's largely the same Campbellian story, but it respects that in a very pleasant and refreshing way. So yeah, I think a very strong 3.5. I guess there's no harm in giving it a 4. Fuck it, like 4. Why not?
Oh, 4. Okay.
Yeah, why not?
Ben, where are you?
I'm gonna give it a 4 as well. I like, much like Pig, I think this movie plays into Michael Cernofsky's strengths as a director in his sleight of hand. You know, again, like playing into kind of using kind of a larger structure and kind of expectations of audiences to tell a different story than the audience may expect. And a much more human story than the audience may expect. And I think that's honestly the heart and soul of this film. And like, Lupita does such a good job in that role. There's so much color in both her and Eric's performances. I think it's great. Again, like the second act gets bogged down by the same formula of set pieces in like loud noise happens, they run away, monsters chase them. That gets a little tiring.
Agreed.
And it kind of bogs the movie down. But like everything else is great. So yeah, 4 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, similar to Cleveland, I was also kind of teetering between a 3.5 and a 4. I'm also going to give it the 4. Just because,
proud cat owner.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the big points for the cat alone. I loved Frodo. But yeah, I think as a Quiet Place movie, like this, like, yeah, really, who gives a shit? And like, it's fine, but again, like, they're wringing this premise dry.
But those are
like,
the terms you should judge it on, regardless, right?
Right, but despite that, it has such an incredibly tender and compelling human story with really great performances that it transcends its base level as a Quiet Place movie and becomes a little something different. It's still bogged down by some of those things, so I don't think I want to give it higher than a 4, but a strong 4 feels good. I liked this movie a lot and would generally recommend it. And it'll give A Quiet Place Day 1 a unanimous 4 out of 5. Next week is another week back at the movies. It's finally time. The long-anticipated Maxine, the conclusion to Ty West's X trilogy, starring pod favorite Mia Goth. We're very excited. So join us next week to celebrate America's birthday. And actually, I think this episode will come out.
Yeah, this episode will be America's birthday.
This is Quiet Place Day 1 is technically our 4th of July episode. We're recording it a week early.
Yeah.
So happy birthday, America!
Eagle noise.
Suck dick and die, please, President Xi. We're waiting. But yeah, Maxine is next week. Come join us for that. I'm excited. I think we're all excited. You want to do a sponsor for us, Clave?
Yeah, all right. The shelf rings. This episode was brought to you by a soulful white boy in a foreign land. It is still the year of the quirked up white boy.
Yeah.
I guess this is an offhand ad for Dune and Shogun.
Get those blue-colored contacts, boys.
Yep.
Stocks are rising.
Hey.
Shogun and Tokyo Vice. Go watch.
And also, in this movie, Joseph Quinn,
He's a bit of a quirked up white boy.
he's a soulful white boy, and he's from England. He's in America for law
He's in a
school.
foreign land.
So he's in a foreign land.
Oh, yeah, wow, how
Hey,
about that? Yeah.
Shogun and Dune.
The trend
blue-colored contacts.
Blue-colored contacts, yeah.
I'm not saying, but I'm saying.
I don't think-
Maybe look into them.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think Jake, Baby Driver, Adelstein has them in Tokyo Vice, but
He
might-
doesn't.
Maybe he
no,
should.
but maybe he should. Yeah, so he can be even whiter.
Even somehow.
Wow. Okay, great. Thanks for listening. If you like the show and you want to support us, best way to do that is to leave us a 5-star rating and review, share an episode with a friend. You can also become a Patreon supporter. Patreon.com/podpeoplepod. Shout out to our honorary pod boys, Sam, Zach, Micah, and Mitchell. Y'all are the best as always. We thank you and we love you. And you can follow the show also at letterboxd.com/podpeoplepod, where you'll find a list of all the films we've talked about on the show with our average ratings and links to those reviews. My recommendation for this week, I'm recommending Spiritual Sounds of Ecstatic Black Metal from the band Agriculture.
Yes.
Ben and I have been very agriculture pilled lately. They just put out a new EP this year, Living is Easy.
So
It's very
fucking
good. They had a self-titled album last year that came out. It's really good. I've been non-stop spinning agriculture this week.
So fucking good. That EP is just incredible. I mean, my recommendation has got to be Pig by Michael Sarnowski.
Pig.
It's an incredible film. Nick Cage, he has such a library of great performances, but honestly, Pig might be one of my favorites of his. You know, you take the structure of a John Wick movie and take out all the action and deconstruct it from there, and you have something like Pig. Pig, you know, works off of the tension of, you know, the action and drama,
the
of
expectation
John
of violence.
Yes, and it plays it so masterfully. Huge recommendation. It's a fucking phenomenal movie. Check it out.
I gotta get on that. I really do. I've been too late. Cleve, what you got?
Well, you know, it's Friday night, which means it's sprout night. So I'm having Brussels sprouts, but I've already shouted that out.
You've
so I
already
can't-
recommended the concept of Brussels sprouts before.
so I
You can't do
go in.
this.
I've been playing a lot of Shadow of the Erdtree this week.
Yeah, I think that's a fair big recommendation from all of us. We've all been playing Shadow of the
I'm
Erdtree.
gonna give that a go, but just with all I'm going to say is it's been advertised on its own enough that the haters are wrong, and every time I've defeated something challenging in Shadow of the Erdtree, I felt proud of myself, and they can't take that away from me.
Well,
Just
they
get
put
your-
in that patch.
Just get your
recently.
Scotty tree fragments and
Make
you'll
it
be
easier
all right.
in the first half.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Stay quiet.
Shh.